Natalie stood frozen as the lioness closed the distance between them, each step slow, deliberate. Not with rage, but with something far more haunting. Purpose. The rogue male lay unconscious in the dust behind them, and the wounded cub limped into the clearing, its eyes fixed not on its mother, but on Natalie. Then, in an unthinkable moment that defied every law of the wild, the lioness brushed past her and gently nudged her own cub toward the human who had once interfered. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The sun in Limpopo was merciless that morning, pouring down like molten brass on the plains, bleaching the sky into a flat, bone-colored haze. Natalie Bennett squinted against the glare as her boots crunched through brittle soil, her breath shallow from the heat. Sweat clung to her neck in sticky rivulets, but her senses were sharp, attuned, trained for signs that most would overlook. A broken twig, a disturbed patch of dirt, the silence of a place where there should be birdsong. She stopped. The grass ahead was flattened in a strangely symmetrical pattern. Unnatural. That was the first warning. "Hold up," she murmured to Andrew, the seasoned ranger behind her. He nodded, rifle across his back, eyes narrowing. Then came the sound. Not a roar, not a growl, but something smaller, rawer. A cry. Thin, hoarse, punctuated by gasps. It didn't sound like a predator. It sounded like pain. Pushing forward, Natalie parted the grass with a gloved hand and saw it. The trap. Old, crude, and cruel, it yawned open like the jaws of some mechanical beast. Caught in its grip was a lion cub, its paw mangled between rusted iron teeth. The cub's golden fur was stained a deep, angry red. Its body trembled, ribs fluttering beneath fragile skin. Every few seconds, it let out a choked, rasping sob. Her heart stuttered. Training dictated that they secure the perimeter, call for tranquilizers. Wait. But something ancient and maternal surged through her, overruling protocol. She fell to her knees. The metal resisted. It had been clamped for hours, maybe longer. She dug her fingers under the hinge, ignoring the sharp edge slicing her knuckles. With each tug, the cub flinched, but it didn't try to bite. It only watched her with huge amber eyes, glazed with agony and trust. Finally, with a metallic groan, the trap sprang open. The cub shrieked. Natalie cried out too, a release of tension and horror, and caught the limp creature as it collapsed into her lap. The paw was shredded, bone exposed. Without thinking, she tore the scarf from her neck and wrapped it tightly, whispering, "You're okay now. I've got you." The others emerged, cautious but ready. Andrew radioed for evac. One of the medics approached with a sedative. Natalie barely heard them. Her eyes stayed on the cub, now drifting into unconsciousness against her chest. Relief surged through her. For the first time since arriving in Africa, she felt purpose bite clean through the fog of guilt. One life saved, or so she thought. The stretcher was barely 6 inches off the ground when the first sound cracked the stillness. A deep, visceral growl that vibrated through the soles of Natalie's boots and shot straight up her spine like cold electricity. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The earth itself responded, humming beneath them as if trying to warn them. You are no longer in control. Natalie's hands froze on the stretcher handles. The savanna, golden and dry, seemed to inhale around them. Then the grass parted. 2 lions emerged, fluid and silent as shadows. Their muscles rippled beneath sun-drenched coats, their massive paws crushing nothing but air with each step. The male stood back, eyes narrowed, gauging. But the lioness... Her body was war incarnate, Her amber eyes locked onto the cub, then to Natalie, and everything changed. "Don't move," Andrew whispered. Not as a command, as a plea. His rifle hung at the ready, but even he knew. One wrong twitch, and no bullet could undo what came next. Natalie felt her mouth go dry. The air thickened into something unbreathable. Her eyes flicked to the cub, still unconscious, her scarf now a stained shroud clinging to its tiny leg. That scent, her scent, was all over it. She knew then. The lioness didn't see a rescuer. She saw a thief. With a roar that split the world open, the lioness lunged, not at the team, not at the weapon, but at Natalie. Time fragmented. Her heart slammed into her ribs. Every instinct screamed to run, to fight, to fall. But her limbs were stone. The only thing she could move was her gaze, and even that was locked in a silent electric current with the mother's eyes, eyes that did not see mercy. Then, the rifle cracked. The sound wasn't loud. It was surgical, slicing through tension rather than space. The lioness recoiled, not from pain, but shock. Dust exploded as her paws dug in. The male snarled, taking a single step forward before stopping again. They didn't flee. They didn't attack. They judged. Natalie stood paralyzed as the lioness approached the stretcher. One massive paw landed beside her boot. A heartbeat passed, then another. And then the lioness reached down, clamped her jaws with eerie tenderness around her cub's nape, and lifted the limp body. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her snarl, low and venomous, said everything. "You don't belong here." And with that, the lions vanished into the bush, tall grass swallowing them whole. Natalie sank to her knees, breath shaking, heart hollow. The cub was gone. And so was the illusion of safety. The camp had gone silent. Even laughter, once a brittle survival tactic after long, tension-filled days, had vanished. No one dared talk about what happened. Not aloud. Not where Natalie could hear. She sat alone beneath the canvas shelter, her hands raw from clawing at mosquito-bitten skin, her eyes rimmed red, not from tears, but from the burning friction of holding them back. The cub's cries still haunted her. Not the sound of pain, but the silence that followed. That unbearable silence after the lions disappeared. Natalie hadn't spoken much since. When she did, it came out in clipped phrases. "Should have waited. My scent. Everywhere. It was my fault." The others tried to reassure her, offering words as sterile as gauze. But Natalie didn't want comfort. She wanted confirmation. Had her hands, so desperate to heal, sealed the cub's fate instead? 2 days crawled by in sun-scorched purgatory. Trackers reported paw prints by the southern cliffs. Blood spatter on reeds, drag marks, but they refused to get closer. "Too risky," they muttered. "That male is back, the dark-maned one. Doesn't belong to that pride. Big." Natalie couldn't take it. She waited until nightfall, then rose as the camp sank into exhausted slumber. Her hands moved with grim purpose. Drone, battery pack, tranquilizer rifle, scope. No backup, no chatter. She slipped into the dark like a ghost, silent, trembling, purposeful. By dawn, she reached the high ridge, her boots crusted with dust and dew. She launched the drone with shaking fingers. The feed flickered. Then, the pride. They lay sprawled beneath a line of acacia trees, elegant, indifferent, at peace. All except one. The cub limped near the edge of the shade, favoring its mangled paw, flinching each time it moved. Alone. Not rejected, not chased, but left apart. like an afterthought. Natalie's breath hitched when the lens swept right. A lone male, bulkier, darker, scarred across the muzzle. He stalked from behind a cluster of brush, not toward the adult lions, but toward the cub. She knew what came next. Males like him didn't tolerate offspring they didn't sire. It was instinct, survival, clean slates for future bloodlines. Natalie's heart slammed in her chest. Logic shrieked at her to pull back. One wrong move, and she would never outrun him. But something deeper, louder, roared within her. No more waiting, no more watching. She lifted the tranquilizer rifle, breathed once, sighted in. The barrel trembled as instinct warred with fear, and she aimed, not as a scientist, but as someone who refused to let nature undo what compassion had tried to fix. The dart hit with a soft hiss, barely louder than a breath, but the impact rippled through the clearing like a thunderclap. The rogue male spun once, a guttural snarl curdling in his throat, then collapsed in a storm of dust and brute weight. For a moment, everything froze. The grasses stood still. Even the wind seemed to halt. Then came the shift. From beneath the acacia canopy, the lioness emerged. She moved like smoke, silent, deliberate, coiled with the kind of strength that didn't need to be proven. Her gaze met Natalie's, and every fiber in Natalie's body screamed to retreat. But she didn't. She couldn't. Not this time. Natalie stood rooted, the tranquilizer rifle at her side, the sun breaking through the clouds to cast a hard, white light across the open terrain. It painted the lioness in gold and shadow, a myth brought to life. But the fury that had burned in her eyes just days before, it wasn't there now. There was only stillness. The lioness didn't growl. She didn't advance with aggression. She passed Natalie with the calm precision of a queen returning to her throne. And then, as if the wild itself had decided to rewrite the rules, she turned her head and nudged the cub forward. The moment defied language. It defied science, instinct, reason. The cub, still limping but alert, moved hesitantly toward Natalie, not out of fear but recognition. Its amber eyes flicked between the woman and its mother, seeking permission, perhaps, or safety. Natalie sank to her knees, slowly. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped the filthy scarf and began to clean the wound again. The cub flinched once, then relaxed. When it let out a whimper, soft and wounded, the lioness responded, a deep, resonant purr that settled into the earth itself. That sound wasn't for the cub alone. It was an offering, a declaration, not surrender, trust. Natalie worked in silence, tears cutting trails through the dust on her cheeks. She didn't cry from relief. She cried because she understood what this was, a moment untouched by human dominance or animal instinct. It was a bridge between worlds, an accord written not in words, but in presence. Days later, the cub would run again. But in that instant, beneath a sunlit sky and the steady breath of a lioness, Natalie shed something too. Guilt, burden, the illusion of control. And what remained was purer than anything she had come seeking. She had not come to tame the wild, but it had chosen to forgive her,